morning, all the students who are mainly from EC, and we have students from computer as well as mechanical branch. And I welcome Mr. Sarvesh Bhise, who is founder of COiN MediX Private Limited, and he has 17 years of experience in medical technology, and he has been working with different companies like Siemens, GE, Johnson and Johnson, Tata Group for consulting, etc. His experience actually varies from R&D to various senior business management functions. I welcome you, sir, for the session, and I hope that this session will be fruitful with a lot of queries from our student with respect to this medical technology. So I hand over the session to you, sir.
Thank you. Once again, a check if everybody can hear my audio well.
I think, yeah, students can respond in the chat so that we'll come to know if the audio is.
Yes, you
Yeah,
can
a
hear.
couple of guys can just. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, I think they
So
can hear it.
let me switch on to the present. Cool. Okay, guys. Thanks. So let me just switch on to the presentation. And again, I'll make sure that you guys can see it, right? Just let me know if you can see the presentation. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. So let me do this with the help of my slides. Thanks, Srini, for uh, having this session organized so fast. I appreciate that. And I thank Mariappan sir also. In fact, this came about because I met him in one of my travels, and we discussed about how we could foster uh, more innovation and more technology kind of alignment with students who are currently doing engineering, and how we can take their careers towards medical technologies, because it's a specialized field. And we are doing this through our own enterprise, which is called COiN MediX. It actually stands for Co-Innovation in Medical Technologies. So that's how that name comes about. The fundamental idea about having these webinars is because we have a consortium of couple of experienced people, including myself, with a combined experience of more than 3 decades in, or plus more than that actually, in medical technologies. And we are trying to bring about a kind of a contribution in terms of how students like you can pursue your careers in this field, because it's a highly specialized field. Still, I would say not very developed in India compared to say US, and I'll just give you a perspective of why I say that. So when we talk about careers in medical technologies and healthcare, there are streams like medical engineering, medical electronics, as well as biomedical engineering, which are popular in several colleges in India. But a very fair share of that doesn't transcend into the actual companies which work either in the product domain or contract manufacturing domain, or in the consulting and services domain for healthcare technologies. And we have seen this trend. I've been in this industry for 2 decades. People have been there for more than that. Uh, Everybody has seen a trend that we are not having that amount of workforce or engineers or technologies or even medical science guys or PhDs working in this field in India or in Asia as such, largely compared to say Europe or more so in America. So America is kind of a business environment where healthcare and medical technologies has the highest prerogative. Gets those who are financially inclined might know that almost 16 to 18% of the gross domestic product, that is GDP of America, is spent in medical and healthcare. India doesn't spend more than 2%, if I know the latest figures. So we are far off in terms of medical education, in terms of this current COVID crisis. You must have seen how many the ratio of doctors versus patients is, how many equipments are short, how many test kits are short, why we are falling short of conducting the number of tests that we should be doing. And most of our technology is built on import. We are importing a lot of devices, but we are not really creating technologies in India at the rate it should be. In the last 2 decades, it has changed. Ever since have been part of this profession, it has definitely changed from just being small contributions of being designers to actually launching products in India and globally now launching products. And now, recently, of late, a lot of Indian companies are also mushrooming in this area and doing good contribution. So that's the whole idea. We have put this consortium together with like-minded people to bring about more inclination towards medical education. So today's session, we are aiming at giving the students an overview of what all medical technologies is all about. So I move on to the next slide, which is what is healthcare technology. Sorry, there's an echo there. Okay. Kind of ground rule, if you guys are staying in this call, please be on mute. We will open up the session in between, maybe around two slots of 10 minutes each, halfway and then at the end, so that people can ask questions, and I'll open up the floor at that time. But let us, in the sake of, because this is not a face-to-face conversation, and it's difficult to have a large participation and not make sure that the calls don't get disrupted. So as a ground rule, before I get into the presentation details, request all of you to be on mute, and then we'll open up the floor in between for questions. I hope that works with everyone, right? Cool. Okay. So let me just get into the slide which talks about what is healthcare. Okay. And when we talk about healthcare technology management, healthcare per se has three major areas. One is the medical technologies that are used, the devices, the equipments that are used in various aspects. It's used in hospitals, it's used in laboratories, it's used in personal care, a lot of stuff. Those are all qualified under medical technologies or devices or equipments, the way it's classified. The other stream is life sciences technologies. This is largely driven by the pharmaceutical world, whether the technologies are used for research in biotech or generic medicines or any kind of medicinal research, or the equipments that are used in the pharma world to manufacture stuff, to basically the entire supply chain of pharma which is used. So this is called life sciences technologies. And then there is something which is known as the healthcare management. So care right now, when we talk about healthcare, healthcare management is the front ending part where the doctors, the caregivers, the right now very important people who are the COVID warriors, if you can say, in terms of healthcare management, are the doctors, the nurses, the lab technicians, right? Those are the people who are part of this healthcare part of it. So when we talk about medical technologies largely are medical devices and in vitro diagnostics that are used. In vitro diagnostic itself is a field in which you will see, you guys will be very familiar with each of us going to a pathology lab or a diagnostic lab for some kind of uh, diagnostics. For those people, they might have seen a lot of equipments which are used to analyze the blood samples, urine samples, and other stuff. Those all kind of equipments can be called as in vitro diagnostic equipment. And then there are medical devices. In pharma technology and research lab, as I mentioned, are part of life sciences. It's a field in itself, especially people with pharma background will experience it in their careers some more prominently. And then there is healthcare management, which is largely the providers. When I say providers, providers are largely the hospitals, the care providers, the hospitals, the labs, the clinics. Those are the guys who provide you the care, the healthcare part of it. That's the front end part of it. And then there is a whole gamut of technologies used, which are financial technologies largely, which are called the payers, which is in countries like the US or UK or many developed countries, you will have the payer system, the insurance payers, which will pay for your medical bills, right? Whether it's hospitalization, whether it's surgery, other stuff, and all. So those are the payer environment, and it's a all financial technology kind of a stuff, nearing bordering on between care management, medical sciences, and financial technologies. Today, what we will probably talk about is largely this area, what I am actually highlighting now, which is largely the medical technologies and the life sciences technology equipments that are used. Those could be the devices, the diagnostics, they could be the lab or personal care equipments, and uh, also dwell upon hospital and other equipments that are used. So this is the whole very high level, 30,000 feet level understanding of what healthcare technology comprises of in terms of different aspects. So let me give you some examples because something that you guys see around you is very common. So medical technologies that you see around you, and let me depict it through some pictures that are familiar to you. So you'll see the left hand corner pictures where you are seeing an operation theater. Now, when you see an operation theater, you could see uh, screen technologies, you could see lights that are used, you could see a lot of support systems behind the doctors, like the anesthesia, the respiratory care, and other equipments which are required in the operation theater. The surgical equipments that the doctors are using, simple cutters, knives to the complex robotic surgery equipments, all the sub equipments that are used inside the operation theater would classify in one or the other form as medical technologies. You could move on to another kind of a large setup. See what you're seeing on the right hand side top corner is a typical MRI setup. When it looks from outside, it just looks like a box or a couple of boxed structures, right? Heavy mechanical structure, but it isn't. You ask anybody who could have spent their careers in mechanical as well as electronics to create a large electromechanical system. The best, one of the best examples could be either an aerospace craft or could be some complex system like a MRI technology, right? And I'm sure many of you must have seen these machines, experienced these machines. Fortunately, unfortunately, some people also have people in their families or friends who have to go through all these diagnostic equipments, and it's large scale technologies. It's a MRI, for example, could have induction coil systems inside it. It would have electromechanical inductances. It would have bed systems, which would have complex Caesar lift mechanisms, which are mechanically driven, pneumatic systems. It could have some other technologies. So this is another example. If you see in the left-hand side bottom corner, you can see something which is called a cath lab, a catheterization lab, largely used. If people are aware, many must be familiar with surgical procedures like angioplasty or angiography, which is nothing but detecting the blocks in your heart and then resolving those problems through interventions. Then if you see, there is this typical setup here on the left hand bottom corner, which is showing you screens, which is showing you complex beds, which can be moved in different axes, which are largely mechanical kind of technology driven. You can see these large C arms, which are ceiling mounted. These are robotic movements which can be done with different angles being positioned for this. And all this is meant to help the doctor. So you have to understand that all these technologies are developed to make the patient comfortable and to make the doctor comfortable. And these technologies, without these technologies, the doctors cannot do anything. They cannot actually find out where exactly the heart has a block. They cannot find out how to do the intervention, how to resolve those blocks, right? You can see one of the latest technologies on the right hand side bottom corner. This is the Da Vinci robot. Essentially, if you look at robotic surgery, it has evolved tremendously in last 10 years, and one or two companies are doing phenomenally well. They are just dominating the market, and more companies are trying to enter it. Robotic surgeries largely are soft tissue and hard tissue. Hard tissues are those which are used in things like orthopedic surgeries, and all soft tissues are used in other surgeries. You could just imagine the kind of interface here. You're talking about all the possible digital technologies here, right? You're talking about connectivity. You're talking about the surgeon doing his movements on a simulator, and then the actual equipments here going into the patient's body and doing exact incisions, doing exact stitchings, exact cuttings, grabbings of organs, right? We are talking about human beings lying here, and the question of life and death, and how accuracy and precision of a machine is helping, right? So these are examples of how complex electromechanical systems work. I want to show you one more slide, and I just want to make sure that everybody is seeing the slide transition, right? You guys are seeing the slide transition. One or two, if you can just ping me. Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah. So look at this slide now. Now we looked at complex, large electromechanical systems. We looked at multidisciplinary systems working in an OT, wherein different technologies are talking to each other. They are connected to each other, right? Now look at this slide, which is talking about something very, very simple that you guys have seen, experienced in daily life. You have seen simple injections, right? Those also classify as medical devices. This is largely all mechanical technologies. You have seen people with asthma or respiratory issues using inhalers, right? Drug inhalers. Those drug inhalers also classify as medical technologies. These systems are called, injectors are called, classified under medical technologies as something called drug delivery devices. You can also see one patch kind of a stuff here put on the shoulder or arm of a patient, and the doctor is applying it on the patient, and it remains on the patient body for a given specified time. Now you can imagine that there is an injector inside here. There are liquids or drugs inside here which will be injected in the patient body, and that will be controlled through probably a smartphone application. And that kind of connectivity and care can be seen in a very simple mechanism. Now these kind of small mechanisms here, or this point of care diagnostics on the right hand side top corners that you can see, uh, all of these are deploying something called micro electromechanical systems, because there are a lot of electronic students I understand on this call. You will realize that there are some technologies, especially with the gift of semiconductors and the evolution of semiconductors. You can imagine that there are a lot of micro electromechanical systems that are now getting deployed. And one of the largest use of that is now coming into healthcare. This has been quite recent, because if you see the older equipments, let me give you an example. Now, what you see here is a human body with a lot of leads, and there is a small equipment. You could figure it out. It's like a Holter ECG, right? Now, if you typically think of ECGs, the traditional ones were large boxes put on the tabletop mounted, and then those leads were put on your body, a lot of gel applied, and then put on your body kind of stuff. Now, these are on the go kind of ECG monitors. A lot of new Indian companies are also venturing into this cardiac monitoring space, which is like miniaturization of those large systems into small handheld systems, and those are monitored, and the record is kept on a smartphone, right? The Apple Watch has been touted as one of the beginnings of consumer healthcare, where consumer devices are slowly doing the job of monitoring people, right? Like those fancy watches that are now being sold out in the market with heart rate monitors, this and that. Okay, you cannot call it accurate precision healthcare, but they are now helping patients to keep a track of their vitals, right? You can see a typical glucometer here, right? Blood glucometer, very common example of a point of care diagnostic. Most of us have it at home for our people in our family who are diabetic, and we want to keep checking their sugar levels, right? Unless it shoots up like this, like 278 or something, which is dangerous. That's been seen here. But just to give you the part of it that micro electromechanical systems are coming into play to help these kind of devices evolve. You can see on the right bottom corner a couple of pictures. Now, if you see this human body, it has been implanted. Now, this is a very, very high severity, high criticality kind of device, right? It has been implanted with something called as implantable cardioverter defibrillator. Now, if you generally talk about defibrillators, those you might have seen in say ambulances where are large equipments are used to press onto the body or the chest of a patient to give them shocks in case their heart is fading and stopping to beat, right? But if it is general patients who are known to have cardiac problems and over a point of time they cannot be surviving without giving stimulus or kind of electric impulses to the patient's heart, then those are having implants which are put inside their body, and you can see this lead going and sitting on the walls of the heart. And whenever the heart faces something called arrhythmias, which is uh, nothing but changes in the pattern of the heartbeat and heart slowing down, then these implants will give a shock wave, and then this will help them to restructure the rhythm of their heart. So something called cardiac rhythm management. This field is called cardiac rhythm management, CRM. You can keep Google noting down and probably Google it out of your interest later. But these are, you can look at purely these pictures from a technology point of view. So imagine small electromechanical systems embedded inside the body, so they should not react with the body. So mechanical technologies come into place, the piping and other things. So the mechanical technologies along with the electrical leads come into place, and then there is embedded electronics with those PCBs controlling the logic inside, and then ability of this device or implant to communicate to the external world, which is a handheld mobile phone or a receptor or whatever it is. So just imagine that we are talking about connectivity, electronic systems, microelectronic system, electromechanical systems. We are talking about IoT. We are talking about biomedical sciences, reactivity with the body, all this put together, right? Or you could see this example of any classical mechanical engineer, right, would know that machining something which is like a 3 to 5 mm diameter, a mesh, that too, a thin mesh like this, and then basically creating a stent out of it. And these are the guide wires. So essentially, these are put inside your heart or inside your blood vessels wherever there are clots or blocks which are called stenosis or clots or aneurysms. I'll not go too technical into the medical sciences, but I'm sure many people might relate to this in their close vicinity, family, friends, or in their towns where they might have heard about people getting implanted with stents. Right now, the stents are very, very micro precision mechanical systems, and just imagine the kind of technology that is needed to really create this kind of machining. And this is largely machining. So you can just imagine this, or the left hand side corner, right? The left hand side corner bottom here, which is showing you a knee implant, right? It's showing a knee implant inside the human body. Now, implants, orthopedic implants, whether it is simple screws, plates, like many of us get this done whenever we learn our bikes or we play that rough football match where we break our leg or break our hands or something. We get all stuff inserted inside our body, these plates and all. Just pay a thought when these things happen to the people who are working tirelessly behind to create this, because there is tremendous mechanical engineering functions that are involved here to create orthopedic implants, right from material science. How does it ensure that it grows over your bone? How does it ensure that your bone is comfortable inside? How does it ensure that it does not rust inside? So material science, right? Surface technologies, manufacturing technologies, machining, right? Those are the things that are coming into picture. So you could just get a feel from this. Or I have one more picture. I'll not get into details. These are typical life sciences lab setups. You can see the number of centrifuges, sterilizers, and the amount of electromechanical science and technology that gets into it, right? So this is just giving you an overview, like we talked about. We talked about electromechanical system, the functions of mechanical engineer. What would a mechanical engineer be contributing in? He could be doing mechanisms like lift mechanisms, slide mechanisms. He could be doing fluid mechanics to ensure that there are right amount of fluids that are transmitted at the right pressure. Technologies like, for example, right now, which is commonly being deployed is, say, ventilator, for example. It's all about how the air is being transitioned at a particular pressure inside the body of a human being, right? That's the basic principle of a ventilator. And it is so critical that if you miss out on the stroke length or the right stroke, then the amount of right oxygen being deployed would not be sufficient, and the patient could collapse and die at the same moment. And the same ventilator, which people think could be a life saving, could become a life threatening device. So it borders very highly on fluid mechanics and mechanical mechanisms. Material science, I talked about, gave you the example of stents or say orthopedic implants or applied material technologies. Electronics, largely, I mean, talk of electronics and probably the best field to deploy and the most high-tech fields to deploy electronics has always been either aerospace or medical technologies. And trust me, there are no other technologies which come very close to the impact that medical technology makes, because whenever we are talking about medical technologies, largely out of 60 to 70% of the devices are going to impact the life of a human being. There could be some assistive devices which could be just support devices, but large sector of devices will be life saving, life threatening kind of stuff. So you are talking dealing with human life and embedded electronics, wires, shields, cables, right? Electromechanical inductances or conductances, all this kind of technologies from electronic side. Software side, people talk about software as part of the mechanical systems or electrical systems, but imagine that without softwares, many of these devices still remain just standalone equipments. They don't actually work as cross-functional systems. Testing of these devices, software has become very prominent now, and software is just still growing. I would say software is going to take a lot and more prominence in medical engineering. Still, it has been very high tech and highly developed, but trust me, it's just growing. It's just growing. And manufacturing technologies. We talked about machining. We talked about sheet metal. We talked about plastics, right? We talked about implants. We talked about plastics. We talked about injectors. Something that a lot of people get interested towards their final years is about automation, right? Or MES, which is nothing but manufacturing execution systems, right? These technologies are all about automation, and when we talk about automation, one of the fields that you could deploy it very successfully is say mass scale medical equipments like say catheters, small uh, cannulas, right? Cannulas which are used to inject, say, the good old glucose in your bed when you are in the bed, or the good old medicines through IV cannulas, right? Those all are mass production medical technologies. Industrial design is one of the most important aspects of medical technologies, because remember, when we talk about medical technologies, we talk about technologies which are focused on the user. The user is prominent here. There is no other way to define medical technology. It has to help the doctor. It has to be comfortable for the patient. It has to enable the doctor. It has to save the patient. That's the criticality of the user-centric design, what is called as user-based designs or user experience designs. Clinical sciences becomes prominent because this is one field where a completely different science combines with engineering technology. As you keep working, say, for 10, 20, 30 years in medical technologies, people say that you end up learning at least some portion of medical sciences and become whatever, a half doctor or a quarter doctor or whatever you could be. So clinical sciences, biomedical, patient clinical research, all need to combine with all the fundamental mechanical, electronic, software, and manufacturing sciences. What you also have seen in the previous slide is the emergence of digital. Like we talked about IoT, connectivity, right? We talked about how artificial intelligence will be a part of software, as well as data sciences will be part of all these technologies. We showed you a picture of the robotics and electromechanical systems, right, that are deployed. So you look at medical technologies, and you could directly imagine with these few slides how complex as well as how unique this field is. And remember, there are questions asked about what's so unique about this field. So I'll take this slide and then maybe we'll pause for these questions. But you just look at what are medical technologies so unique about, right? There are questions that aerospace guy can ask. There are questions that automotive guy can ask, saying that there are cross-functional systems in other systems also. So what's so unique? What's unique is the first thing thing is, this particular domain is highly intellectual property rights driven. Even before you start designing anything, you need to know what you are doing, where you want to go, what would be the kind of design that you want to do. And these are all niche technologies, right? These are not commodities. These are not smartphones. These are not automobiles. These are not technologies that can be just deployed from one type of car to another car, one type of smartphone to another smartphone. No, you will have to go through the entire cycle of the regulatory compliance. You'll have to, and trust me, there is no other field. You can research on your own. There is no other field which is more regulated and compliance driven than medical technology. Surely, because of the fundamental fact that whenever you develop a medical technology, you are dealing with the human life. You are enabling the doctor to save a life, and regulatory compliance is paramount. So it is highly regulated, and the regulations are so stringent that typically medium complex to complex medical device could take 3 to 5 years to from R&D to launch. And if it is highly complex, it could take more than 5 years. So you're spending like 2 years, 3 years just designing and taking it to a launch, right? I've been part of an accelerated product development cycle, and we did a fairly complex medical electromechanical come robotic kind of a system. We developed that within 2 years, 18 months for complete R&D, 6 months product trials, and then initiation of product launch. Trust me, that 2 years was like every day 12 to 14 hours of work. So, if you go by the normal pace of 8 to 9 hours of industry per day work, then you are talking about doing a medical device not less than 2 years or 3 years. So it's highly, and then you have to go through this regulatory system where all the regulatory bodies, right? The US FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administrator, or the CE marking that you see on a lot of equipment, is also applicable for medical electronics, which is confirmatory to electronics systems. All these, the European medical device directives. I'll not get again highly technical here. That's something that we also have designed a course for, and people can definitely reach out to us to know more about how these technologies and how these compliances work. But it is probably or the most highly regulated. It is completely driven by the end user. It is completely driven by the safety of patient. You can design the best and the best of technologies. You can think that it is probably the best technology that can help a patient. But trust me, if it is not something that is safe enough, it is not proven that it is safe enough to use for the doctor or the end user or the patient, then you just cannot launch that device. So it's highly safety driven. Clinical outcome, if you can, I can give you maybe a couple of recent examples that I have quoted to some other guys also. You can just think of what happened with this COVID-19 and rapid diagnostic test kits, right? We got a lot of test kits imported, and then they started like pool trials and other trials, and then they found out that the accuracy was not good. They were not giving good readings which were bankable. We could rely upon them, and then finally the government stopped those kits, right? Recent phenomena. Or I can give you one more example, which was a very sad case which happened, I think last year, a couple of years back. Couple of cases, in fact, happened like this. So, what happened in one particular case in medical history is that a particular woman went to the diagnostic lab. She was not feeling well, showed some symptoms of nausea and vomiting, and not feeling well, loss of weight, and all that stuff. So she basically got herself diagnosed, and the outcome came that the lab report showed that she probably has some kind of a cancer. I'll not get into the details because it is patient specific. Uh, the same patient then went through chemotherapy, all the treatment which is related to oncology. For a couple of months, she went through this, and then there wasn't real good progress, and there were a lot of questions about what was happening with her body. And then there were retests done, and it was found that she didn't have cancer. So you can just imagine what that poor lady has gone through. She has gone through probably the most rigorous medical treatment which nobody wants to face. and purely because of wrong diagnosis or negligence or whatever you could call it. I don't want to comment on the judicial part of the investigation. That is left to the authorities. But purely from accuracy and precision point of view, can we play around with any ranges? Can we say probably she has or he has some disease, or probably not? No. The answer is no. You cannot do that in clinical sciences. You could do that, say, in a smartphone, and say that the battery of the phone lasts for 8 hours. It might last for 6 hours. People might say, so what? Yeah, it depends on the usage, blah blah blah. But you can make n number of claims, and if those claims don't work, the nobody gets penalized for it. If you can say that my fuel average for a car is, say, 15 kilometers per liter, and it turns out to be 10, right? There are so many cases right now where people have filed lawsuits against large companies saying that their vehicle was quoted to give 15 or 20 as a mileage, and they are ending up giving less than 10. And the company says that's an indicative range, that's a vehicle, depends on usage, blah 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 blah, so many factors, it's subjective. Can you do that with a patient lying on a bed in a surgical procedure, or an oncological treatment, or even currently, say, a COVID patient who is having acute respiratory illnesses? Can you just say that my ventilator probably will give you oxygen to in a range? If you don't get it, probably you might die. Is that something that is possible? No. So when you talk about medical technologies, you are talking about high accuracy and precision. And risk management and quality, there is no room for error. So quality is paramount. Without quality, medical technologies cannot exist. Lastly, it is, if from a pure mechanical or electronics or a science perspective, it is a multi-speciality kind of a field, right? You just cannot be a good medical engineer without knowing how the frameworks are. What are the methodologies used to design a product? What are the methodologies used to basically do the clinical research? Understand the application. There is something called as intended use. What is the use and application of this device in terms of science? For an engineer to understand that, take that scientific knowledge, convert it into measurable mechanical, electrical, or whatever engineering inputs, and then convert it into a device or something, is a multi-specialty skill in itself. So it's very unique, it's very different, right? So I'll just take a pause here, because we have like another 20 minutes left, if I'm not wrong. And I'll quickly, before I jump into the different career streams, I just wanted to know if there are any queries till now, and then probably take a few questions, right? Maybe 5 minutes of questions. You could just ping me, or you could just come in.
I think you can proceed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe we could do the slides and then have maybe 10 minutes for questions.
Yeah.
Open up the floor for questions,
Yeah.
right?
And they
Okay.
can also, if there are any queries that are coming to their mind, they can keep posting the queries in the chat so that
Yeah,
we can take it later.
sure. That works. Okay. So let me just get into. So we have talked about what is this technology is all about, and trust me, I'm just giving you a high level overview, because medical technologies cannot be explained in a 1 hour webinar. So what I have given you is just a feel, right? Just feel for what all complex technologies can work together to make a medical device. Uh, Imagine the kind of career streams that you as an engineer could develop in this field, right? There are people who join as, say, R&D technologists. They join in R&D teams after their BTechs or MTechs or PhDs. they keep researching on a specific area and they grow their career in that particular area, maybe pathology, maybe hematology, maybe radiology, maybe surgery, maybe orthopedics, maybe cardiovascular implants, or kind of technologies. There are multiple segments or functions and practices that medical sciences have. Depending on which area you're working, you could specialize, grow your specialization right from a team engineer or a assistant engineer who can start their career, or a research fellow, and grow up to becoming a R&D principal scientist or a principal lead, or grow and become a chief designer, right? These are all design and research related career streams that you can get into. Design and development is a huge part of any medical device research. Uh, I understand that some of you might have done some field visits, seen doctors working or some medical equipment companies and all. You can just imagine how much effort and how much prominence the design and development team gets purely, and the research teams get purely, because without that, without getting a patent done, without getting a proven technology, and then actually taking the technology to a product which can be launched in the market, nothing could be done. So design and development is the core, and other streams, for example, any other industry, is largely driven not so much by the R&D and design and development, but it's also driven by how fast it can be produced, the production part of it, the part of manufacturability. All of things come in other fields, but in medical technologies, you could imagine that R&D, design, and development are key streams. Quality management itself is a stream in its own for developing your career. If you are very quality conscious, you are extremely quality conscious, you cannot tolerate anything that doesn't work as stated. If you cannot verify that any function of a device or a technology does not work as stated, you will always drive your career into a path which could be becoming a design quality leader, you could become a manufacturing quality leader, or you could become just product quality. That is, once the product is there in the market, right? Many of these devices, like say a CT, MR, in vitro diagnostic device, a lot of devices will stay in the market for 3 years, 5 years. They will be used by users, and a lot of issues will come through. The product will have to be reviewed, sustained. So quality management itself has multiple streams. Compliance and regulatory is a very specialized science scheme. It is also called regulatory sciences or regulatory affairs. This is a very
Hello,
specialized stream. Sorry, was there a question? Sorry,
Sarvesh.
was
Hi,
there a
Sarvesh.
question?
I think
Yeah.
you cannot hear.
Can you hear me? I'm speaking right now. Am I audible? Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Srini, can you hear me? Srinivas? I think it's a problem with Srinivas's connection, but I assume that a larger section of the audience is able to hear me. That's what I'm getting the pings. Okay. Okay. So let me just continue. Is that okay? I guess most of you guys are hearing me. Okay. Srinivas, are you back? Oh my God. Okay. Guys, I'll probably continue assuming that you guys can hear me based on the pings that I've got. Shall we? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So let me just touch upon the other fields, right? I talked about regulatory sciences, and This is something that individual, after you get into a company or a corporation, probably will have to develop certain training, certain kind of specific projects have to be done in order to become a regulatory expert. So you will always have to develop a very specific path in becoming a regulatory expert. One of the most critical path, because the regulators are the ones who finally decide whether the product can be certified and launched or not. Sales and marketing, I'll combine it together, although they are two different streams. Sales is different and marketing is different, because sales is largely front end sales, which you will be dealing as a sales leader or a sales engineer. You will be dealing with doctors, you will be dealing with front end sales, right? You would be dealing with distribution partners, just understanding what is the product intended for, and then understanding what are its clinical outcomes, what is its intended use in the market, how it is going to be used, and the ability to convince the doctor that, hey, look, my product serves the patient XYZ well, and that's why probably you should buy my product. Because remember, when you get into sales, you will have tough competition. Other companies will be having similar products, not the same product, but sales itself. And a lot of people, after their BTech, probably go for MBAs and then probably wanted to get into sales and marketing. It is one of the most challenging field in medical technologies, purely because you cannot do commodity selling here. You cannot sell shavers. You can. It is not like selling, say, blades or shavers. It is not like selling cars. It is not like selling any other commodity field. Here you have to convince the doctors, the hospitals, the patients, whatever, based on the type of device or technology, you have to convince them that this technology that you are selling or product you are selling is better, and finally is going to clinically be much more technologically safe to use, right? So safety is critical, accuracy and precision, clinical outcomes, knowing the product, understanding its clinical application, everything becomes critical. So in a way, you again become very highly technicalized when you do the sales. So it is largely technical sales and marketing. That's a big difference between sales and marketing in other business industries versus sales and marketing in medical technologies. Service and maintenance, as I told you, these many of these devices are huge electromechanical complex systems that are placed in the hospitals, and you need to take care of their entire life cycle management, right? Is there a product functioning? Is there a complaint which is repeating? Complaints management is a field in itself, right? Surveillance of a product, it's called product surveillance or post market surveillance. It's a very unique field. Managing a product complaint, for example, there is a say a implant, and there is a cardiac implant, and we have seen such complaints coming in where there are repeated queries about some of these cardiac implants not working well. What is the option left? You have to quickly, as a product service person or a complaints leader, manage this query from the patient, because remember, that patient could die if these are not solved quickly. So you have to quickly revert back, and then if it is not working, quickly get back onto the surgeon, understand whether that patient needs to be again going through a surgery or an intervention to fix that device, whatever, whatnot. But your agility, your ability to understand whether it's a severe event or whether it's a normal event, whether it is something that you could resolve over a phone, whether it is just something like a user error, it all depends on the kind of expertise that you have as a product service person. Manufacturing is a domain in itself within medical technologies. For example, plastic molded medical technologies are different. Complex electromechanical systems are different. Uh, just pure play electronics are different, and then software plus electronics are different. And each of this product has to be is a physical product, so it has to be manufactured in some of the other technologies. So there are large companies, you might have heard names of say Flextronics. You must have heard names of Plexus, Jabil, Benchmark. You could Google these names also. These are large companies my previous organization signed it. It has a huge manufacturing facility to manufacture electromechanical medical systems, or there are a couple of other Indian companies also that are doing this. So this is a contract manufacturing for medical devices, whether it's embedded systems, whether it is electromechanical subsystems, whether it is pure play mechanical systems, moldings, sheet metals, whatever. Manufacturing is a field in itself to develop your career based on your inclination, your specialization. Consulting is another domain where consulting largely, if you see a lot of services companies like TCS's, Wipros of the world have huge operations in medical technologies. We have thousands. I mean, when I say we, because I worked in this industry, we used to have thousands of people working in this area. So consulting and working with multinational companies, or working with startups, working with local companies, or even colleges and institutions to come up with new designs, new R&D, new product, or just enabling them to manage their product service. All this is part of services consulting. I'll give you a quick flare, and then probably we'll get into question and answer session. Just look at the names of the companies that I've posted. On the left hand side, I've posted product companies which manufacture products. Medtronic is a close to a $30 billion, 30 billion, I repeat billion. We are talking about billions here. Medtronic is a close to a $30 billion company. Johnson and Johnson Group. Now, a lot of you might know Johnson and Johnson for pharmaceutical. A lot of you might know Johnson and Johnson for the baby products that you use, or the soaps, or the hand washes, sanitizers. But Johnson and Johnson Medical Division is close to or more than $25 billion organization. I had
So, Sarvesh, yes, sorry to interrupt. I think the screen is not visible.
oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, let me just represent it. Huh?
yeah.
I think it's also my less experience on Google Meet. Just hold on. Let me just, I'm reprojecting it, guys. Just
Yeah,
let me know
yeah,
if you can see.
yeah. Now it's, I think, visible.
It's visible. I'm talking about the different company names here. You guys
It's
can see it, right?
no, it's showing you are presenting to everyone, but I think slide.
Let me just do it again,
Yeah, just do it again.
right? Yeah. Shows that I'm presenting, but let me stop and do it again. Okay. So we might take another 10 minutes, Srinivas. That's
Yes,
okay,
sir. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Can you guys see it again?
Yeah, yeah. Now we can see it.
Okay, cool. So I'm talking about global players here. You can see these names on your left hand side. These are all large product companies. I had the good fortune of working with a couple of them, like GE Siemens and Johnson and Johnson, in different roles in India as well as in outside of India. And largely these companies, right, are the leaders. But there are a lot of big companies which are still big. What I have posted here are largely all billion-dollar corporations. They are not even, you guys must be familiar with Philips, Siemens, or GE. You might have seen those equipments, large equipments, say X-ray equipments, whenever you go to a lab. Or there are a lot of companies who do precision healthcare, like Ben Dickinson or Stryker or Boston Scientific, which are very, very complex critical cardiology systems or mechanical intervention systems. A lot of these are high-tech companies. Intuitive Surgical, a lot of people who are interested in robotics can search about this company. This is the world leader in robot surgery, Intuitive Surgical and Stryker, both of them. And you could see how complex their systems are, and how surgery is possible with their system, how the accuracy and precision of their robots is so high that they can do better surgical procedures than a common physician or a surgical expert. And we have had the good fortune, people who have been in the industry had the good fortune of working with doctors who are surgical experts with 2 or 3 decades of experience from top hospitals in India and abroad. And when we see what matters, right? These companies, why are these companies billion-dollar companies, but not so many Indian companies as product companies? One of the major differentiator has been the culture, right? We in India have not had the engineering resource pool who understands the culture of how medical technology has to be developed. What is zero quality defects? What is zero tolerance to any deviation from accuracy and precision? As an Indian culture, unfortunately, we have become used to having some kind of margin for error. We unfortunate, it's unfortunate. It has been sometimes our positive aspect, because that has led to the idea of jugaad innovation also. So in a way, people have got through that trap of not being very compliant and very quality conscious by calling it jugaad innovations and others. Not everybody is a big fan of jugaad innovation though, but it works in a lot of sectors which are needed in India, because India doesn't have the resources and the money power like a US or a UK to put into R&D of medical technologies. But still, the culture has to change, and one of our founding missions of our setup right now is we are bringing in all types of industry experts, doctors and consultants, to teach the students about what good practices, frameworks, and methodologies are, and how you can become a good medical technologies engineer. Not just being a biomedical or a medical electronics engineer, but being a good medical technologies engineer. What are the processes? What are the technologies? What is new product development? What is regulatory? What is quality sciences? So, giving that detail is what we are looking at. You, on the right hand side, you can see a lot of consulting companies, TCS, Accentures of the world, the Wipros, the Science of the world, or Tech Mahindras of the world. All of them deal with engineering services and consulting for medical technologies, and you could get a career path as a lead designer, as a project manager, as a on-site kind of a technical expert for any of these MNC companies. You could develop your own career in consulting also within medical technologies in India and abroad. A quick 1 minute on, talked about COiN MediX and why we decided to form this. And as Srini just hinted, in my previous role, I was heading the Asia Pacific in India business development for a large company, multi-million dollar company. And then I decided to move out of that during this current COVID crisis, largely because we wanted to get that pool of industry oriented resources created. We have also created a program. I think Srini will share that quick introduction to you through a video later on. Right, Srini,
Yes, yes, I will share it.
on the program.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just give them what our mission is. We have to bring together the industry knowledge that we have. We have a lot of consultants like myself and much more experienced, like 30 years also, to get to talk to you guys and understand and teach you what is in the real requirement of the industry. We are also creating a startup fund wherein we are finalizing a couple of projects, and we are trying to partner with startups to really take that technology to becoming a successful product. Because what we have seen is that there are lots and lots of good technologies that get developed at a concept level, at the idea level, or as a prototype, but they don't get into the market. And we are doing our own fair research on why it doesn't get into the market. But the primary reason is it doesn't have the final clinical outcomes that are required. It doesn't have the capability and funding to take it through the regulatory grills, through all the regulatory applications, through all the clearances, through all the testing, to prove to the doctors and the end users that this is safe enough to use. So we are trying to create an incubation platform wherein if there are innovative ideas, we can screen them through our technical panel and then see whether we can help either financially, or because we just have worked in the industry, funding them in terms of, say, a manufacturing support or technical guidance, just making them understand how to take their idea towards a final product, right? All can be incubated within our setup. We are actually setting up offices in Goa as well as Bangalore to start with, and also build a culture within this engineering community, because largely our engineering community has got divided into mechanical, electrical, electronics, software, and we want to be in our domains. But there is a industry like aerospace or a medical technology which is cross functional. We are offering right now basic courses, which are like 8 weeks kind of a introduction to industry and fundamentals, where we give you the idea what medical technology is all about, what healthcare technology is all about, how devices are designed, what are the different stages of their life cycle, and how they are applied. Advanced courses will make you understand with a project example, and probably you'll get an idea of working for 3 to 6 months with us on a project where you will be able to deliver probably a minimum viable product or a functional prototype, or what you call as proof of concept. And then specialization, because we are talking and trying to partner with a couple of large companies right now, we are trying to create that framework wherein we will create specialized resources. For example, after 3 months of advanced learning, if you want to specialize in quality, or you want to specialize in product development, or you want to specialize in post market surveillance, these are the three courses we have already designed. We will add more, but these are the three courses we have already designed. So these are the courses that we will teach for a month rigorously, like 6 days in a week, every month, and then you will be able to probably crack any of the interviews, any probable MNC or dream company that you want to work in this field. This is an overview of the course, what we intend to teach. I can maybe request Sridhar to relate the video. We have a brief video where you can read this through what all we can do, but we will give you a detailed expertise in this field. Right? So this, who can do it and why you should do it, because we are doing it from an industry perspective, and we are focusing on experiential learning, that is through projects. We are trying to generate the next group of entrepreneurs locally. More happy to do it in Goa because I myself was born here, and we want to basically create a pool of engineers who are ready to work on products either with us or with big MNCs, and be job oriented. Finally, wherever you guys learn, you want to apply it and become job oriented or start your own company at some point of time, right? Many of us started say 15, 20 years later. Some people want to start it as soon as they want to get out of college. Based on what idea and what circumstances you are, you would look to develop your career accordingly. So students, working professionals, also young working professionals, if you have friends and families who want to look at medical technologies as a career, entrepreneurs or technical just enthusiasts about technology. You would have any degree, but you're technologically inclined and passionate about working. And the whole idea about, say, I can share about myself. I don't want to talk about others, but I know a lot of friends and colleagues. The reason why we have been in this field for last 2 decades is largely because we were passionate about this field. Again, mark my words, there is no other field right now which can be as useful to a doctor or the society as the field of medical technologies. You can just be the doctor's best friend. That's what one of the CEO whom I was working for told me once, that this is the field where you could be the doctor's best friend, and this is as close as serving the society as you could get as an engineer. I have my contacts and all shared with Srinivas, and again in those videos. So we also have started a YouTube channel where we will keep adding more posts. It's a recent start, but we'll keep adding more fillers. So if you guys are excited about technology, you can keep looking out for our channel. It's called MediX, and you could keep seeing more videos coming in next couple of months. So that's about it. I would just give maybe 10 minutes for any questions, Srini. And feel free to ask any questions, any simple queries that you have.
Yeah, one of the question that students wanted to ask is now third year students, they are going to do a project, and some one or two groups they do project on medical technology or in biomedical domain specifically. So
Mm-hmm.
if required any help, or whether they can present their idea to your company wherein they can get some help with respect to that.
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, more than happy to help. if you guys have some ideas and you want to do it full fledged as a taking the idea to maybe a workable model or a prototype during your course of your final year projects, then we can definitely look at how we can create a mechanism for that. We can definitely work closely with Srinivas and your college principal, who is a dear professor of mine also, Professor Mariappan. We can work closely with uh, your faculty and decide the mechanism on how it can be done. But yes, it can be done. Definitely.
And can you brief them on internship opportunities that you have with your company?
Okay, so right now we are, as I mentioned, we are finalizing on three areas. Okay, we are finalizing projects on purely driven by artificial intelligence. It's a complex project. The medical side of it is being handled with a couple of experts, but we are starting a project probably very soon on artificial intelligence. There is another project that we are looking purely from mechanical and largely electromechanical system, not purely mechanical, sorry, largely electromechanical system, which is in the assistive technologies. There is a scope probably there. We can definitely look at people, but largely what we are hiring right now are people who have already worked on either say AI technology or worked on any kind of robotics technology, right? Those are the people that we are hiring right now. But internship, yes, we can think about it, Srini. Based on it will
Yeah.
highly be subjective based on the profile of the person. But
Okay.
if you guys have some technology that you are working on, for example, if you have some projects in your mind and you want to take our help in some guidance as well as probably look at how we can, and it's not just us. So one of the mission that we have is we are not just using our own funds, we are also building a consortium. We are already reaching out to Department of Biosciences. We are already reaching out to quite a few venture centers. Venture centers are nothing but venture capitalist centers in different parts in India as well as abroad, who are actually having funds who can promote this. In fact, I am in touch with a couple of abroad funds who are looking at new ideas. So we can get you connected with those funds, and you can post your ideas through us to that fund, and we can mentor you on that. So there are different ways we could do it. So reach out to us, maybe we'll prepare a brief presentation of what you want to do, and then take it. Right?
Yeah, there is one question from Zidan, who is a third year
Uh-huh.
student. Is there a
Uh-huh.
master's course in the field of AI or robotics inclined toward the medical technology?
Not really. I mean, not really. As I told you, see, what has to be done today, unfortunately, is you have to learn a technology and then learn to apply it in medical technologies. Because largely, what we have restricted our engineering technologies courses is towards biomedical, and biomedical person could then learn, say robotics, and then become an expert in that particular field. What happens also is this is again based on pure experience. What happens is a lot of computer science or robotics mechatronics people end up being BTech or MTech and then come into a GE or a Siemens or a Philips or a Stryker, and then these companies will train you in a particular field, and that's how you become an expert in it. So one of the reasons why we are doing this course is just to get you from an engineer to a company ready professional, right? So, for example, if you want to be an expert in AI in medical sciences, you could do a AI course on your own, or you could apply through MTech through some of the top colleges, or you could just do an online course and make sure that you have enough expertise, and then start preparing your own projects so that you can showcase it in the market. That also works. A lot of people come to us with projects. They do their own programs, they do their own projects. We see their projects and then they get recruited. Purely not just based on whether they are an MTech or a PhD. It depends on what real expertise you have.
Yeah, there is one more question.
Uh-huh.
How to build a good portfolio in order to showcase all our projects? That is specifically for us fresher.
Okay. So you're talking purely from, so there are two ways you look at
Yeah.
it. Do you want to build a portfolio so that you want to start something on your own? You want to attract funding or want to attract VCs towards you, or you want to build a portfolio specific to become creating a CV and applying for a job. These are two different. Okay.
If
Yeah.
for a
For
job,
a job,
yeah.
yeah, I saw that. So for a job, you will largely have to showcase your capabilities during the interview. Your CV is just an initial view, because freshers are not expected to know the technicalities of medical technologies. Again, that's one of the reason why we are creating these courses and why we want to train people, because none of the medical technologies companies expects the freshers to know all the jargons, the terminologies, and other stuff before entering the field. And then there are training programs that people who get through these interviews will go through. If you want to create a portfolio, showcase your technical capabilities, and then also showcase your projects that are applicable to this field. For example, if you have done something as a assistive technology, say for a blind person, or you have done something for speech recognition technology through AI, you have done something like designing a lens for anything related to optics, you have done something to create a miniaturized robot, whatever you have done, right? Or you could be a software engineer and you have done something as simple as speech recognition. How does it help someone? You have done something like a image recognition. How does somebody detect some image? These kind of stuff are basically you are showcasing your portfolio for a job seeker, telling the person that, hey, look, these are the projects I've done, so I understand one, two, three, four technologies. Now you can ask me the questions that you want. I have understood some of the basics of medical electronics and medical technologies. See if you can hire me. That's one way. The other way is obviously to do specialization like what we are putting together. You do some courses for 3 to 6 months, industry focused courses where there are not many. That's why we have started this. There are not many who are doing this, and that's why we have started this. We are not starting a engineering course, we are not starting a biomedical course, we are not starting a generic course like a NIT or anything, EPTech or anything. We are starting something which is, we call it as industry orientation. We make engineers oriented towards industry, and this is just the beginning, because we are already partnering with couple of companies, and we'll partner with more because we know that industry needs resources, right?
Yeah, thank you, Sarvesh. I think I will request our HOD, who is also present on the call, to say a few words.
Uh, uh, Actually, this webinar is very interesting, and I would like to thank Mr. Sarvesh, COiN MediX Private Limited, for giving a very neat presentation and give more ideas on what are the career opportunities available in the medical and health field. Thank you very much. Because you talk about MEMS also, because I also worked in MEMS, RF MEMS. So it is very
Okay.
nice, interesting area to explore more. Uh,
Oh,
and
yes.
I would
Yes.
like to thank our CIRC and the Census for organizing this wonderful seminar. And also I have to thank students for joining this seminar. Around 90 plus students they joined. It's very good sign.
Oh, that's good.
Well, my request to all the students is you have a lot of opportunities, because you can explore a lot of opportunities in this area for your project as well as your career. Because most of the time, this is the area. I also said that it is a multidisciplinary area. Anybody can get job in this area if you know mechanical, if you know electronics, if you are very strong in software, you can do something on this area. So I ask all the students to use this opportunity. You can contact Mr. Sarvesh, is ready to help us. So use this opportunity. Thank you all for joining this webinar. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sarvesh, and thank you all the students and all the faculties, HODs, and we will get back to you with lot of queries. And I think there is one more of this. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Is
So
okay.
many.
So it's regarding, I think, your presentation, that is, it has helped us to explore unknown career opportunities for an engineer. So I will share the videos and your company details to students. And thanks a lot for being present with us and giving us very informative session, which will enable our students to think about this particular medical technologies in detail. Okay. Thank you, and I will end the
Thank you.
session. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.